The victim met the defendant, and the defendant retrieved or gave the victim the license plates. The victim gave the defendant a screwdriver. He went out to the truck and came back to the victim and entered the victim's residence. While the defendant was in the victim's residence, an altercation ensued, and it resulted in the defendant stabbing the victim 70 times, causing the victim's death and the death of her 5-month-old unborn child.
He bought their pickup truck on a Friday night and drove away with their license plates still attached. 48 hours later, he came back to return those plates and stabbed the pregnant seller 70 times before setting her home on fire. 19-year-old Nadas Revucas had 2 full days with that 1994 Ford Ranger. 2 days to inspect it. 2 days to decide he was angry about its condition. But here's what investigators found in that truck after they arrested him: $200 in cash on the driver's seat, some of it soaked in blood. Eliza Morales' husband's debit card. Her work ID from Lurie Children's Hospital. This wasn't about a truck. This was about something he saw during that first meeting on January 24th. Something he wanted. And 30-year-old Eliza Morales, 5 months pregnant with her second daughter, was home alone when he came back for it. What happened in those 48 hours? Why did he really return? And what did Eliza say that made him stab her even harder? Welcome to Crime Spectre, where we examine the cases that reveal the darkest corners of human nature. Subscribe, like, and share this with someone who loves true crime. Eliza Morales was the kind of person who made you believe the world could be better. At 30 years old, she worked in payroll at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago, meticulous about details, making sure families got their paychecks on time. She had recently converted to Islam and found peace in her faith. She spent weekends at the library with her 1.5-year-old daughter Zyla, reading books, determined her children would grow up smart and curious. Eliza and her husband Elias Silva were high school sweethearts living in Downers Grove, Illinois, about 30 minutes outside Chicago. They had an apartment on Ogden Avenue, an elderly red-nosed pit bull mix named Zula, and they were expecting their second daughter, whom they had named Xochitl. Eliza was 5 months pregnant and dreamed of having at least 2 more children. Her mother-in-law Angelica Silva would later tell reporters that Eliza was always trying to help someone. She cared deeply about children and human rights causes. She was motivated by family, driven by loyalty, guided by a heart that was truly selfless. On January 27, 2026, Angelica was babysitting Eliza's daughter. They were probably eating dinner, she said through tears, while Eliza was being murdered. The whole apartment showed evidence of the fight. Handprints on the walls where Eliza tried to get up, where she fell, where she tried again. On Friday, January 24th, Elias Silva listed their 1994 Ford Ranger on Facebook Marketplace. A dark red pickup truck, old but functional. Within hours, Nadas Revucas from Westmont, Illinois expressed interest. That same day, Revucas came to their apartment to see the truck. Eliza was home. Elias was home. Revucas checked it out, agreed on a price, paid, and drove away. Normal transaction. Except they forgot to remove their license plates. So they arranged to meet again on Monday, January 27th. Revucas would return the plates and pick up the bill of sale. 5-minute exchange. But here's what nobody asks. Revucas had that truck for 48 hours. He lived less than 10 minutes away in Westmont. He had 2 full days to inspect every inch of that vehicle. 2 days to contact Elias if he wasn't happy. To ask for his money back. To walk away. He didn't do any of those things. Instead, he came back. And when he came back, he came with a plan. January 27th, 5:28 in the evening. Surveillance cameras captured Nadas Ravakas walking up to the apartment building wearing boots, a camouflage jacket, and gloves. Eliza met him in the vestibule. Elias wasn't home. She handed Ravakas a screwdriver to remove the plates from the truck. He walked outside, worked on the plates, then came back inside. Surveillance footage shows him walking toward Eliza's door carrying both a screwdriver and a knife. He wasn't just there to return plates. He was armed with 2 different tools of violence before he even knocked on her door. Eliza opened her apartment door. Ravakas stepped inside. The door closed. Then at 5:47, 19 minutes after he arrived, the cameras captured a struggle. The door opened. Closed. Opened again. The handle turned from the inside, over and over, as if someone was desperately trying to escape but couldn't. Inside that apartment, Nadas Ravakas stabbed Eliza Morales 70 times. Most wounds were to her head and neck. She had defensive wounds on her hands and arms. And at some point during the attack, while bleeding and gasping, Eliza told Ravakas she was pregnant. She screamed it. She begged him to stop because there was a baby inside her. Ravakas later told detectives what he said in that moment: "She was basically dead to me." Then he kept The family's dog Zula tried to intervene. Ravakas stabbed the dog between the eyes and kicked her. Zula escaped through a sliding door when Ravakas set the apartment on fire moments later. He stacked household items onto the kitchen stove, grabbed cleaning chemicals and hand sanitizer, poured them over the pile, turned on the burner, and walked out. By 6:08, smoke poured from under the door. At 6:09, the Downers Grove Fire Department received an alarm. Firefighters broke down the door and found Eliza near the entrance, exactly where the surveillance showed the handle turning. She had been trying to escape. She was pronounced dead in the ambulance. The coroner found soot in her airways, meaning she was still breathing when the fire started.
The police continued their investigation, which led them to 63rd and Main, which is an Ace Hardware store. And in the garbage at that location, the police located additional clothing that the defendant had been wearing at the time of the offense. In addition, they located Eliza's work lanyard and work IDs from Lurie Children's Hospital, where Eliza worked, as well as Eliza's husband's debit card. There were gloves that appeared to have been blood that were located, as well as pieces of Eliza's phone.
The Downers Grove Police Department had 6 hours to find Eliza's killer. Surveillance footage gave them everything. They could see Ravakas arriving, entering, the struggle, the timeline. Elias told them about the Facebook Marketplace transaction. The buyer's name was Nadas Ravakas. At 11:42 that night, officers spotted the Ford Ranger in a driveway on Spruce Lane in Westmont. The truck still had the Morales plates attached. Ravakas was inside with his girlfriend. Police arrested him. A search warrant found the boots from the surveillance footage with blood on them. Bloody clothing. In the truck, blood on the driver's door and steering wheel. And sitting on the driver's seat was $200 in cash, some bills stained with blood. But the most damning evidence was at an Ace Hardware store on 63rd and Main. Ravakas told detectives he went there after leaving Eliza's apartment to change his bloody jacket and clean up. Detectives searched the garbage and found his camouflage jacket soaked in blood, 2 bloody gloves, pieces of Eliza's cell phone, her work lanyard and ID from Lurie Children's Hospital, and Elias's debit card. This was not someone angry about a truck. This was robbery. Ravakas took Eliza's phone, her husband's debit card, cash. The real motive was something he saw during that first meeting on January 24th. During the interview, Ravakas cried. He admitted stabbing Eliza, though he claimed only 10 times, far less than the 70 wounds documented. He told detectives he blacked out during the attack, that he didn't remember all of it. But then he admitted setting the fire, methodically stacking items and using chemicals and sanitizer as accelerants. "I thought maybe just erase it all," he told detectives. A blackout doesn't explain planning a cover-up. He said he didn't plan to kill Eliza, that she didn't do anything wrong, that it just happened. But he took detectives to Ace Hardware to show them where he dumped evidence. He confessed. And with every word, he built the case against himself. The knife was never found.
It is a horrific act of violence, and it's not something that we typically see in DuPage County. It's unconscionable, an unconscionable level of violence that we have observed in this case. And our hearts go out to the victim's family who have to deal with this, and the entire community. Crimes like this have an impact on the entire community.
On January 29th, Nadas Revucas appeared before Judge Joshua Diden wearing an orange jumpsuit, showing minimal emotion. Prosecutors read the charges: first-degree murder, intentional homicide of an unborn child, armed robbery, aggravated arson, aggravated cruelty to animals. Assistant State's Attorney Alyssa Rabulinski laid out the evidence. The 70 stab wounds. The confession. The moment Eliza said she was pregnant and Revucas responded she was basically dead to him. The fire. The dog. The Ace Hardware dump. The bloody money. Judge Diden detained Revucas without bail, calling him violent and unable to control his emotions, a danger to the community. Rather than stop, he continued the merciless attack, the judge said. Revucas's public defender argued his client was 19, a young adult whose brain was still developing, a full-time painter in school for electrical apprenticeship with no criminal history. None of it mattered after 70 stab wounds. The next day, January 30th, Revucas was found in his jail cell with apparent self-inflicted injuries. He was transported to a hospital in critical condition. By February 1st, he was medically cleared and returned to DuPage County Jail, where he remains in a high-observation cell. His arraignment is scheduled for February 18th. State's Attorney Bob Berlin called the crime unconscionable. It is a horrific act of violence, and it's not something we typically see in DuPage County. It's unconscionable, an unconscionable level of violence. Eliza Morales left behind her husband Elias, her 1.5-year-old daughter Zyla, and a family that will never be whole. The baby she carried, Xochitl, died with her. Zula survived but was traumatized, under care at an animal hospital. A GoFundMe raised more than $120,000. On the page, her family wrote, "She came into our lives with a kindness that felt effortless. She was the type of person who would give the shirt off her back to a stranger. Her generosity wasn't an act. It was her nature. She was a devoted mother, gentle, patient, fiercely committed to her family. Everything she did was rooted in love."
Mother, humanitarian, someone that would take their shirts off their back for you. Her kids also meant the world to her and to all of us, but she was such a smart mom.
The questions remain. Why did Revucas really come back on January 27th? If he was angry about the truck, why didn't he contact Elias during those 48 hours? Why did he take Eliza's phone, her work ID, her husband's debit card? Why was there $200 in bloody cash in his truck? Was this always about robbery? Did he see something during that first meeting that made him decide to come back and take it by force? And why, when Eliza screamed she was pregnant, did he keep stabbing? 48 hours. That's how long Nadas Revucas had to think about what he was going to do. 48 hours between shaking Elias Silva's hand and stabbing his pregnant wife 70 times. 48 hours to change his mind, to walk away, to be anything other than a monster. He didn't. A mother is dead. An unborn child named Xochitl is dead. A husband left without his wife. A little girl named Zyla without her mother. A 19-year-old with no criminal history sits in jail awaiting his February 18th arraignment on charges that will likely keep him behind bars for the rest of his life. What happened in those 48 hours? What did he see on January 24th that made him come back with a knife? We leave our doors unlocked for strangers because of a 5-star rating on an app. Eliza Morales did everything right. She met in daylight. She had her family involved. And yet, the monster still walked in. As Nadas Ravakas awaits his next hearing, we are left to wonder, in the age of digital deals, is any front porch truly safe? Eliza Morales deserves to be remembered not as a victim, but as a mother, a wife, a woman who loved her family fiercely, whose life mattered. If this case shook you, subscribe to Crime Spectre for more deep dives into the cases that reveal the darkest corners of human nature. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. All we can do now is remember her name.